Yeah. And that's, I originally, when I signed up, I kind of said that, I was thinking in terms of your channel and the people that listen, and I'm one of them. I voraciously like listen to all of your stuff at least as much as I can while I have the time to. But you end up talking to a lot of people who are looking into church or other kinds of things, um, and but I also see the other thing with my generation and maybe the generation behind me is that a lot of us are giving up on church. And sometimes when I talk with people who are my age or a little younger, and I ask them, well, why did you stop going to church or something else like that? And then they'll tell me the reason, and it won't even be anywhere close to all the stuff that I went through.
That's right.
And then then I get this like thought of like, and sometimes in the conversation, they'll be like, well, yeah, why are you still going to church? Like, you should leave too, kind of thing. Like, it's the obvious thing. If you leave because the church is filled with hypocrites or filled with these people who are going to hurt you, well, you experience, like, they'll, like, I experienced that firsthand. And one of the things I'll even say is to people is the worst people that I've ever personally experienced with or dealt with have been church people.
Yeah.
But also some of the best people I've ever worked with and experienced with are church people as well. And so it's not the fact of being a church person that makes them a good person or a not so good person. I might just go ahead and go on a little bit of a spiel, because I think in that process of going through that, of being kind of persecuted by a former mentor and feeling like at the depths of despair, I started reading about David and Saul. And so I mean, it's one of those things, is like suddenly the story became real. Like, it wasn't just a Bible story. It was this is real. I'm experiencing this. I'm experiencing, and I was like, this is my cave in Adullam moment where David's at his lowest point. And then people just out of the blue start coming. And like that man that I talked about, he just came out of nowhere and just gave me a word of encouragement. And I started reading the Psalms, and suddenly the Psalms were more than just places to go for proof texts of doctrine or something else like that. It's like, these are real emotive things that people go through, and how, and I found great comfort in those. And they suddenly became a part of me. And so in some ways, some weird ways, it's like, the Bible became more real to me in some ways, because that happened to me. I think Paul puts that in a certain way in Romans, when he kind of compares Pharaoh and Moses. Like, Moses wouldn't be Moses without Pharaoh. David wouldn't be David without Saul. And so, without suffering, you wouldn't necessarily be what you end up being. And that's the same with Jesus Christ as well. But then the more that I've thought about that for myself is like, why do I stay in church? And why do I stick with these people, and some people that hurt me? And you even go to church and people don't always, it might not be as bad as that particular preacher, but people don't treat you as well as maybe they ought, or something else like that. The text I always go to is John chapter 6, where the people come to Jesus after he fed the 5,000, and they're like, well, feed us again. And then Jesus starts this long, convoluted teaching where he ends saying, you've got to eat my flesh and drink my blood. And whenever I've preached that sermon, I say, what? And then the people say, is he saying that we should be cannibals? And then Jesus said, oh, no. I'm speaking in metaphor. Like, don't get the wrong idea. I'm not talking about cannibalism.
They weren't paying him either.
He says, you're right. I am talking about cannibalism. You've got to eat me. Eat my flesh. Drink my blood. And nobody understands. And it's so difficult, or it's so strange that everybody leaves. And then Jesus is left with the 12.
Yeah.
And then Jesus says, are you going to leave me also? And then Peter answers, and Peter doesn't say, oh, no, Jesus, we understand that you're talking in a metaphor, and we understand all the deep significance. No, Peter says, where else are we going to find eternal life? Peter says, we're just as confused as everybody else, but we know there's nowhere else to go.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's kind of where I am in my spiritual journey, is that even in terms of being disappointed in church or disappointed in specific people in the church, my faith isn't in the church. My faith is in Jesus. And even if I don't necessarily understand why I'm going through all the suffering that I'm going through, or why my life goes in this direction or that direction, where else can I go for eternal life?
That's right.
And that's right. And so, yeah. So it seems to me like the question about church or spirituality or religiosity, it's not about, I mean, it does include things like living the good life and all the things that kind of come up with Jordan Peterson and philosophical things and everything else. But eventually it comes down to eternal life. Where does that reside? And it only resides in Jesus Christ. Like, and all the other things, they will freely admit, or at least especially all the naturalistic ones, that it doesn't end in eternal life. So, I mean, if that's already kind of out the window, like, but like, it's not founded. And like I said, it's not founded in that thing of wishful thinking or something else. It's founded in a belief that, well, that was really helpful with the case of Christ, the case for Christ, where it helped me get this idea of like,